Hey guys, William Mayette, creator of Jazz Edge. Welcome to Jazz Piano Daily, number 21. Today we're talking about chord shells, and I'm going to show you why chord shells are the most versatile jazz chords that you will find. So let's jump right into this. So what a chord shell is basically it is just part of the full chord. So when we have our full chord like C major 7th or C minor 7th or C dominant 7th, we label those notes as the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th of the chord. We've covered that in some earlier episodes and earlier lessons, so be sure to go back to those lessons. All right, but so you have your root 3, 5, and 7. So if we take out the notes that are really kind of unnecessary, then we are left with our chord shells. So let's talk about what I mean by that. All right, so now if you look at these three chords, the C major 7, the C minor 7, and the C dominant 7th, let me just play each of them and see if you could find which two notes are the same in all three of those chords. There are two notes that I'm going to play that are going to be exactly the same. See if you can figure out what they are. All right, here's C major 7th, there's C minor 7th, and there's C dominant 7th. Okay, so now if you said that the root and the 5th were the notes that were the same in both of those, or in all three of those chords, you're absolutely right. All right, it's the root and the 5th. All right, so now when we have the root and the 5th being the same in all three of these different quality of chords, and by the way, when I say quality of chord, I mean is it major, is it minor, is it dominant? That's what we talk about when we say quality of chord. So we have three different qualities of chord, right? Major, minor, dominant, and yet we have these two notes that are the same in all three of those chords. Those are the notes that we can leave out, all right? So the root and the 5th, we don't really need to have in our chords. But you're going to see that in all of these chords, I am going to have the root in them, right? So what do you see? You see this R3. R means root. Root 3, root 7. Root 3, root 7, root 3, root 7, okay? So here in the C major, I'm going to play the root and the 3rd, and I'm going to play the root and the 7th. So why am I playing the root when I said, hey, wait a second, the root is the same in all three of those different types of chords? I'm playing the root because we're still going to need to hear some root motion. Now, later on, when you start playing in more group type playing and you're playing with a bass player, then the bass player will play the root and you'll play rootless chords. We've talked about that a little bit. We'll talk about that some more as we go on. For right now, let's just focus on our chord shells. All right, so our chord shells, very simply, it's the root and the 3rd, or it's the root and the 7th of the chord. Hey, Willie, do you ever add the 5th as one of the chord shells? Yeah, maybe if it's like a minor 7 flat 5, you might do something like that in which you put in the flat 5, maybe no 3rd in there, right? Just the flat 5 in there. Or maybe you play the entire full chord. You don't even use a chord shell. You don't have to use chord shells, but you're going to see why they're very versatile. All right, so anyway, this is your typical shells right here. This is the ones that you want to learn. So the root and the 3rd, the root and the 7th, root 3, root 7, root 3, root 7. Let's just go through a couple of different chords. F major 7th. What are your two chord shells? Well, there's root 3, there's root 7. What about E flat major 7th? All right, well, what's that? Remember, we start with our E flat major scale, we build our E flat major 7th chord, and there's my root and my 3rd, or my root and my 7th. All right, good. What about B minor 7? All right, start with your B minor 7 chord. If you want to pause the video, see if you can figure it out first. All right, so there's B minor 7, there's root 3, there's root 7. Let's do one more. You can pause the video and see if you can figure it out on your own. A flat minor 7. All right, so pause the video. Here we go. There's A flat minor 7, there's the root 3, and then here's the root 7. Okay. All right, so let's talk about why this root 3, root 7 chord shells are so functional, all right? And they are just so versatile for jazz piano. Right? So we have the first three measures here of Misty, okay? And all I'm doing here is just playing my chord shells in my left hand. Whoops, I got to fix that before I upload that. B minus flat minus 7. Should just say B flat minus 7, all right? So that's a B flat minor 7 chord. All right, so in the left hand, I can just simply play my root 3, and when I get to B flat minor, root 7, root 3, and then root 7. Now don't worry, we're going to put the melody to this a little bit later on in the week, but you can kind of hear what this sounds like. Right? I mean, it sounds really good even though I'm just playing these light chords or these chords that don't have a lot of notes in them, right? So one of the first reasons why the chord shells are so versatile is that you could pick up any lead sheet and it makes it super easy for you to be able to play just about any jazz standard, right? As long as you know your chord shells, you can make a basic arrangement. So, right, so there's the Days of Wine and Roses. We did that lesson in Standards by the Dozen. What about Autumn Leaves? All chord shells right there. You can even take the chord shells and start to make them into a bass line. So if I did something like this, right? So I can make that into a bass line. Right, so there is an example of how I could take the chord shells and rather than playing them as a chord shell, like both the notes all at once, I could break them up as a bass line. Don't worry, we're going to cover all of that stuff. I'm just trying to show you how versatile these chord shells are and make the case for why you really got to learn these. All right, now, another great thing is, let's say that I want to accompany myself while playing Misty. Well, now, remember we did those rootless chord voicings, right? So there's E flat major 7th rootless chord voicing, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7th. Well, guess what? Put the shells in the left hand along with that. Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree, right? So now, this sounds gorgeous. And all I'm doing is playing the rootless chord voicing in the right hand along with the chord shell in the left hand. Again, like I said, we're going to cover that all this week. So make sure that you're really paying attention this week because we're going to be utilizing those chord shells and adding in the melody, adding in those two-handed chords, right? So there's just a little bit of a preview. For right now, what I want you to really do is just really understand this concept of, okay, I could play the root and the third or the root and the 7th of my chord. Now, obviously, what do you need to know? You need to make sure that you know this. If you don't know the actual chord itself, that it's going to be virtually impossible for you to be able to get the root 3 and the root 7. So make sure that you really know these chords. Okay? Now, if you want to, since we're going to be focusing on Misty this week and kind of fleshing that out, you can go through the chords from Misty. Right? I already gave you a head start here. So in this music right here, that's the first 3 measures. You can go ahead and get started with that. One other thing I want to let you know about chord shells is that when you are playing low, like something like this, right? There's F major 7th, too low, right? It just doesn't sound good that low. But when you do the chord shell, see how you can play these chord shells much lower, right? Whereas you might not be able to play the full chord down there, but you can take the chord shell. So the chord shell helps to lighten up that voicing down there so that it doesn't sound too heavy. All right, so anyway, that's it for Jazz Piano Daily for today. Remember, if you want to grab the sheet music for these lessons, you can go ahead and grab it right here, right? So you get access to days and days of sheet music, so make sure you go back to Jazz Piano Daily and then put in your name and email address there. And of course, if you like the videos, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, all of that kind of stuff. I'm providing this stuff to you for free, so the least I ask is, hey, can you at least subscribe to the channel and like the video? I'd appreciate it. All right, so anyway, that's it for me. We got a lot to cover this week, so be sure to check out Jazz Piano Daily, and I'll see you guys in the next daily lesson.